Hello everybody, this is Gittemary for Live Kindly, and today I'm going to share with you 20 different low waste, sustainable living, zero waste beginners tips. So let's just get started. The first thing that is possibly one of the most important things is use what you already have. Don't go out and buy tons of new stuff because now you want to start living sustainably. You can start by using a lot of the things that you already have. A really good idea when looking into sustainable living is choosing reusable items over disposable items. So look for stuff that you can use many times rather than things that you have to throw away super quickly. This goes for basically every aspect of your life, and there are tons of cool zero waste swaps that you can make that you can use forever. If you want to start living low waste or zero waste, you can start by looking at the trash that you already produce. There are so many different tips out there, so a really good idea when you want to get started is taking a look at your own trash after a day where you just live your normal life. Look at your trash before you throw it away and see if there are anything that you could perhaps do better the next time, and that way you can learn from your mistakes rather than, just taking everything in and maybe using a lot of energy and time on something that you might not even need to do. Take it one step at a time. It can be really overwhelming when you start looking into sustainability because you will be able to find flaws basically everywhere. It can be really overwhelming. Take it one step at a time, and also, be kind to yourself. For me, I found that what really helped was taking one room at a time. So for the first thing that I did, I looked at my kitchen, and when I found that all of those habits were changed and everything sort of felt normal, I started looking into my bathroom. That way, transitioning into a sustainable lifestyle might be more sustainable in the long run because you're able to do these things for a longer time rather than burning out too fast. Contact your local recycling facility. What is recyclable might differ completely from country to country, from area to area, and region to region. So what can be recycled for me might not be possible for you. Therefore, it might be a really good idea to contact your local recycling facility and find out what you can recycle. That way you can favor some of those materials and that kind of packaging over packaging that is non-recyclable and thus will end up in landfill. You can also find ways to reduce high impact foods and replace them with the lower impact foods. That can be stuff like reducing or refusing meat and dairy whilst opting for more plant-based alternatives. For instance, milk made from dairy is a very high impact food, while milk made from oats is a very low impact food. There's so many of these swaps, and if you use it, for instance, in cooking, you might not even be able to tell the difference. Waste is not waste until you waste it. What I simply mean by this is that there are tons of things that have been designed that we just throw away once we've used it once, while we might be able to use them more times. You can do this with tons of different things. You can also use napkins from restaurants, bring them back home, and then use them instead of paper towels. There's so many reasons to reuse these products over and over again and not let them go to waste. Repair broken items. This is super important, and this goes for bigger things like electronics, and it goes for smaller things like socks. This is a great sustainable swap that's also very personal and about valuing the resources that we're using rather than just disposing of them and replacing them once they break. A really good thing to start practicing right now is how to refuse certain items when they're offered to you. Products that you might not use yourself or would never buy yourself because of their high impact. It can be when the tray of meat is passed by you at a family dinner. It can be many different things, and sometimes it's very difficult for us to say no to these things because we don't want to seem impolite. So try looking at how you can say no, or how you can come prepared, or how you can avoid these situations so you don't have to feel impolite about it. By the way, you're not impolite because you're refusing certain things. It's simply no thank you, I'm good can be all you really need. For me, the way that I sort of avoided fast fashion gifts for instance, Christmas and birthdays was by only wishing for cash, for instance. Neato. Implement good anti-food waste habits, for instance by organizing your fridge or making sure that you use all your leftovers. Food waste is a really big part of sustainability, so find ways to make sure that you use your leftovers, for instance by using them in your lunches the next day, and making sure that you organize your fridge in a way so you can always see your leftovers so they're not forgotten, in the far back of the fridge where they'll sort of turn into this gray brownish mush that we are all kind of familiar with, I feel like, and then we'll never ever use it. Make sure that you're organizing your fridge in a way where you can always see these stuff, and this also goes for freezers. Before buying something new, see if you can find it secondhand. For instance, every time I need new tights, I just find them in thrift shops because they're always there, and sometimes even in their original packaging. I either look at Facebook Marketplace because that's a great resource, I look at secondhand apps, and I look at specific companies that resell secondhand electronics. Refuse small unnecessary products like promotional goods and samples and freebies and flyers and buttons and pins, all this stuff that you don't really need that's just going to end up in a junk drawer. You can also start researching sustainable initiatives in your area. Someone hosting a farmer's market, cleanup events, clothes swap events. Some of this you might not be able to find out about in a natural way, sort of like going down the street and then looking into something, where there it was. Sometimes it takes a little bit of research, but it can be really good to get involved in some of these initiatives. Look both at the physical and the invisible impact of a product. It's so easy, specifically with lifestyles like zero waste, to hyper focus on the physical trash because that's the things that we can see. But there's so much impact going on behind the scenes. There's so much stuff that we as consumers will never get to see, which is why it's super important to also look at the invisible impact of things. That can be the invisible impact, aka the emissions of animal agriculture, of flying with airplanes. There are so many different industries, companies and products and services that we can start to refuse or reduce because of their high impact. And that's not only something that goes for the physical trash, but also something that goes for emissions. Composting. I love composting. It's such a cool project, and even if it's not something you want to do to sort of combat all the organic waste that you accumulate or that you generate, it can still be a really, really cool project to do. You can compost even if you live in a small apartment, and you can use composting if you have a big yard. Basically, everyone can compost. It's just a matter of finding a good way that suits you. So find a way to use your organic waste in a compost. I use my compost now to fertilize all my plants, and they're looking kind of neat. I don't know why I'm so cheesy today, I'm sorry guys. When starting a sustainable lifestyle, it can be a really good idea to learn lots more about sustainability. So sit down and watch documentaries, follow nature series. If you want to change your priorities and thus change the way that you live and try to live more sustainably, it can be a really good idea to follow people with similar views. In terms of research, find out which companies are the most polluting and then boycott them. Sometimes it's not completely possible to completely refuse products from certain brands, but sometimes it's definitely possible to reduce the amount of products you buy from this brand. But it can be a really good idea to limit your consumption of those products. Big companies that produce so much waste. Another thing that I think is super important is getting involved politically. There's really no way that we as consumers can change anything without also making sure that we change things on a higher level. We need both the industry, consumers, and politicians to be in favor of sustainability for this to work. And that all starts with how we vote. So make sure to first of all vote. Then vote for people with green policies and ambitious sustainability goals. That's super important. You can also create petitions, which is also an amazing way to get involved. Also, I think this is important to mention as one of the last things, but you don't need a trash jar to be zero waste. You don't even need to be perfectly zero waste to be zero waste, because no one is perfectly zero waste. And when you hear people say zero waste, what we often mean is the goal and not the actual practice. We want to limit our consumption of goods and we want to limit the waste we generate as much as possible, but that often means that we are not always 100% successful, and that is still okay. So just be aware that you don't need to be perfect to be zero waste. You just need to want it and to try the best you can. And lastly, perhaps it's a little bit difficult out there, but hear me out. Start looking at your products as resources rather than basing their value on the monetary price. It's so easy to discard things like socks because they cost us basically nothing. But socks are usually made out of cotton or polyester, and those materials had an impact when they were produced. So if we can fix them, or if we can use them for a longer time rather than throwing them away, that is a win. That is a win for sustainability. That is it for me. Thank you so much. If you have any other suggestions for sustainable, low waste content here on Live Kindly's channel, please let me know and let's talk more down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. This was Gittemary for Live Kindly. Have an amazing day and I will see you guys soon. Bye.